happens to your stay in the UK if your marriage fails? There's also one question I've had a lot in my DM, in the comment section. I've picked them from all my platforms. The questions, the popular ones, that I'm answering them, I'm trying to answer them. So this one came on top of the list as well. What happens if the marriage fails? So for example, you were dependent. This for the dependent only. If you're the main applicant, you are not bothered if the marriage fails. It doesn't affect you because you are the visa holder. Your life continues. But for the dependent, it's quite a shame because the relationship is what brought you, and that is the basis, the only reason why you are in the UK. So if that marriage fails, to be honest, it is a big blow, and it really affects the dependent, which is the husband or the wife who was, depending on the main applicant. If this happens, that means that you can no longer use that marriage as a basis of staying in the UK ever again, because that person has, said that it's not working. And usually, if it happens, it is the main applicant on visa. It is your duty and your responsibility to notify the Home Office about the dissolution of the marriage, whether it is separation or divorce or whatever. You must notify the Home Office as part of your duty as the main applicant. And the reason why they say this is because probably the person has left you, they've left to another place. You don't know what they are doing, and your name is on their visa. If they do something that the police is going to look for them, I'm sorry, but they'll come to you and come and look for the person. That is why it is important to notify the Home Office. So if this happens, that is not the end of the world. There are other ways that you can settle without your main applicant, okay? So it doesn't mean that you must leave the UK. Ideally, the Home Office will give you a notice period that you should leave the country, because that permission that you have is now ended. So they'll give you a period to sort yourself out, otherwise you leave. So within that period that you have, there are other options that you have. So I'm going to be explaining 5 options that you can use as a dependent whose marriage has failed. Also, let me just state that according to the UK law for dissolution of marriage, one person can decide to dissolve marriage. So don't ever think that your spouse cannot leave you. They can take that sole decision to end the marriage without your opinion. And that is why it has to be teamwork. You both have to respect yourselves and support each other, and not one person doing whatever they like. 5 ways that you can stay on your own as a dependent if your marriage has inevitably ended and you still want to continuously live in the UK. The first option is that if the marriage dissolved based on domestic violence, you can apply for support, right? So let's say you have evidence, palpable evidence, that this person was abusing you physically, emotionally. I don't even know how you can prove emotional abuse, because it is the most exhausting form of abuse you can ever think of. But whatever, if you have evidence of your abuse, you can submit it to the Home Office and say, listen, this person got married to me but is abusing me. These are my evidence. Based on that, the Home Office can grant you settlement based on domestic violence. The second thing is that you can apply for long-term residency after 10 years. So if you decide to stay in the UK, I don't know how you're going to be staying in the UK, I don't know. But if you decide to stay and you are able to maneuver your way to stay up to 10 years after that dissolution of marriage, you can qualify for long-term residency based on the fact that you've been in the country for 10 years. The next thing is that you can look for a skilled worker visa and apply for a visa on your own, which is now very common. So if you're a professional, if you've got a certificate, if you know how to do something, and you're able to find an employer in that field of yours who is happy to sponsor you, hallelujah, you can use that sponsorship to be on your own, to now go and apply for your own visa and be on your own. But as I said, once you switch from dependent to skilled worker visa, your ILR clock is going to start afresh. So let's say, for example, you were dependent for 4 years before the marriage failed, and then you switch to skilled worker visa. That 4 years is gone. You are going to start afresh on that skilled worker visa for another 5 years before you get your ILR. The fourth point is to remarry. If somebody has left you, then that's not the end of the world. That's not the end of the world. You can remarry. Okay, so if you get somebody who is interested in you and they are settled, obviously they've got their status, they've got their documents, and they're happy to be with you, you can obviously remarry the person and move on with your life. The last but certainly not the least is using your child if you've got parental responsibility of the child, and if the child is a settled immigrant. So if the child has got a British passport or a British citizen or a settled child, probably because your spouse whom you have that child with is settled. So by virtue of their status, the child has a status as well. If you have a child like that, you can use a child based on your child's status, and you would have to wait for the child to be 7 years before you can use this route. So, having a dissolved marriage doesn't mean all hope is lost. There are still other avenues that you can use, and I feel like explaining this to you. So these are the 5 ways so far I know that people have used to get a settled status after their marriages or relationship has ended whilst they were on dependent visas in the UK.